She held the bag with both hands, clutching it close like it carried something still breathing. Every few steps, her eyes flicked down, checking the zipper, checking the seal, making sure no one had touched it. To most, it was just a worn leather duffel. To her, it was the last promise she hadn't broken. Then, at airport security, they asked her to let go. And when the bag opened, a letter slid out. No one noticed. No one, except a nearby Air Force officer, who froze the moment she saw the signature. Exactly 15 minutes later, 5 Humvees blocked every entrance to the terminal. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The terminal at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport buzzed with the usual morning rhythm, families reuniting, business people marching to gates, and announcements echoing overhead. Among them walked an older black woman, tall but slightly stooped, her short silver curls tucked under a faded army cap. She moved without rush, yet every step felt deliberate, as if each one held meaning only she understood. Her name was Gloria Rowe, 72, a retired Army nurse who had once walked through minefields with nothing but gauze and grit. No one in the crowd knew her. She preferred it that way. Over one shoulder, she carried a worn leather duffel. The seams were frayed, and one of the zippers was clamped shut with an old field band. A tattered medical cross had long faded from the canvas, but a yellowed tag still clung to the handle marked EVAC 06HND. She had flown in from Gainesville, Florida, on a quiet ticket with no return date. The woman at the counter had asked, "Vacation?" Gloria had simply smiled and said, "Not quite." After baggage claim, she made her way toward the exit checkpoint. That's where it happened. The scanner beeped, long and sharp, when her duffel slid through. A young TSA agent, barely 30, frowned and flagged the bag. "Ma'am, I need you to step aside," he said. Gloria nodded once. No protest, no fear. She followed the agent to the inspection table and stood silently while he tugged the straps loose. She watched him work with the same calm she had used on battlefield triage. No emotion, just presence. The agent glanced at the screen, then at her. "You aware this bag still has a military lock seal on it?" "I am," she said. "It's outdated. This kind of tag hasn't been used in 15 years. "I know. I'm going to have to open it." Gloria said nothing, just stepped back, allowing him space. Her eyes stayed on the bag, but her hands remained at her sides, fingers gently curled inward. He unlatched the flap. Inside was a folded blanket, a small canvas pouch, and a sealed envelope tucked between a notebook and an old medical kit. The moment the flap opened, the envelope slipped out and dropped onto the tile floor with a soft slap. The agent didn't notice. He was already searching the side compartments, but someone behind them did. 3 passengers down the line. A woman in uniform bent her head slightly, her black boots scuffed to attention. Her hand lowered instinctively to retrieve the envelope. It was addressed in faded ink to G. Rowe. "If it ever goes dark again, read this." Below the line, a signature. Anthony Graves. Elena Park didn't move for a moment. The noise of the airport dimmed behind her ears. Her breath caught, not in surprise, but in something deeper. Recognition. She straightened slowly, cradling the envelope like something sacred. Major Graves. Her old commanding officer, her rescuer, her ghost. He had died 12 years ago in Wardak, but the letter was real. It had her pulse thudding in her ears. Elena looked up at the older woman in front of her, the one who hadn't even glanced back at the letter, the woman whose name now rang in her head like a final note of a forgotten hymn, Gloria Rowe. The TSA agent had finished his check. "Nothing dangerous here," he muttered, starting to zip the duffel. "Just old gear." Elena stepped forward before he could finish. "Excuse me," she said, voice firm. The agent looked up, puzzled. "Yes, ma'am." She held the envelope lightly but with certainty. "Where did this come from?" He looked confused. "It fell out of her bag. I think." Elena turned to Gloria. Is this yours? Ma'am Gloria finally looked at her. Not startled, not suspicious, just curious. Depends, she said. What does it say? Elena hesitated. It has a name. Graves? That changed everything. Gloria's eyes shifted to the envelope, and for the first time, her posture softened. Her hands reached out not urgently, but with reverence. He wrote that before he left. She said, he said I wouldn't need it, unless the world went dark again. Elena glanced back at the signature, still unable to speak. I didn't read it, Gloria added. Not really. I just carried it. For years. In that bag. Across states. Through silence. Elena's voice came low. He saved my life. Gloria nodded once. Then you're one of his. Neither of them noticed the terminal crowd anymore. The space around them had thinned to air and memory. Elena stepped to the side and made a call. Not with her personal phone. She pulled out a military-issue satellite device, tapped a single speed dial, and held it to her ear. The line clicked immediately. Andrews Base Command, a voice answered. This is Captain Elena Park, she said. I have visual confirmation of Gloria Rowe, the medic who saved Brigadier Graves in '06. Silence on the line. Then confirm location, Thurgood Marshall Airport, Southwest Terminal, Checkpoint B. How long can you hold position? Elena looked at Gloria. As long as it takes. We'll be there in 15. She hung up. Gloria watched her carefully. You didn't have to do that. I did, Elena said. Because he would have. Then, softer. Because I owe you both. The TSA agent was still standing nearby. Utterly lost. Elena turned to him. Sir, I need you to pause any further inspection. This woman is under active military protocol. He blinked. Wait. What you'll understand soon enough. Gloria sat down slowly on the bench near the window. She placed the letter on her lap and smoothed its edges, as if it were a piece of cloth that needed care. Did he talk about that night, she asked, voice quiet. Only once, Elena said. And he said someone found him in the dark. No flashlight, just hands. Gloria smiled faintly. That's all it took. Elena sat beside her, boots still planted square, uniform crisp despite the hours of travel. She didn't speak further. She didn't need to. Outside, planes touched down and departed. Inside, time waited. Elena didn't open the envelope all the way. She carefully slid out the folded pages, aged but intact, and read just enough to feel it hit. The handwriting was sharp but slowed near the end, like it had been written during recovery. The date at the top read April 3rd, 2010, 4 years after Hellman, 4 years before Wardak. Graves wrote about the night he nearly died. Not in numbers, not in tactics, but in sensations. The blast shattered the west wall. I don't remember the pain, just the silence after the shock. No one came. I had almost made peace with that. And then, she did. The pages were filled with fragments, phrases like gauze pressed into ribs, a whisper saying, breathe for now, and her shoulder braced against stone while pulling me through mortar dust. No rank, no name. He called her the one who stayed when others ran. I lived to wear stars because she didn't let me bleed out in the dark. So if I ever made it to the top, it was on the spine of a medic who had no backup. She didn't wait for permission. She moved. Then the line that made Elena stop reading. I lived long enough to save others, but she saved me first. Elena stood there, motionless, as the weight of those words settled into her chest like gravel. Her mind rewound to 2013. Kandahar, the outpost near Wardak. She had been leading a small recon team and stepped on a buried IED just outside the perimeter. The blast wasn't fatal, but it tore into her thigh and sent shrapnel into her left arm. Her radio went dead. She had crawled behind a burnt-out vehicle and waited to die. Major General Graves had been visiting the site that week. He could have stayed behind the wire, sent another lieutenant, but he didn't. He took her place, led the extraction himself. She remembered his last words before boarding the Humvee with her team. "You'll rest. I'll finish what you started." He never came back. For years, she lived with that debt, the guilt, the unbalanced scale. But now the scale tipped back just a little. Graves wasn't the first link. He was the second. The first had been sitting on that bench this whole time, hands folded in her lap, never saying a word. Elena turned. The crowd had shifted, the TSA officers busy now with other passengers. Gloria remained still, her bag beside her, the envelope now resting atop it. Elena stepped to the side, her fingers dialing before she even looked down at the screen. The black device buzzed softly as it connected through a military channel. "Andrews Base Command," a clipped voice answered. "This is Captain Elena Park," she said. Her tone had changed. It was no longer the measured voice of a traveler. It was the voice she used when giving orders from inside the wire. "I have visual confirmation on Gloria Rowe, former Army medic. She was the one who saved Brigadier Anthony Graves in Helmand, 2006. There was a pause. Then, "Confirm your current location. BWI, Southwest Terminal, Checkpoint B," a shorter pause this time. "Hold your position. 5 Humvees en route. 15 minutes. She ended the call without replying. Elena took a breath, tucked the device into her inner coat pocket, and turned back toward the bench. Gloria looked up at her. "You made a call," she said, more observation than question. Elena nodded. "Yes, ma'am. To who? To the men who need to know who you are." Gloria's brow lifted slightly, not in protest, just curiosity. "I'm not anyone they'd remember," she said. Elena sat beside her. "That's where you're wrong." A TSA agent walked by, still looking confused, holding a half-completed form. Elena stopped him gently. "She's under military escort now," Elena said calmly. I don't understand," he stammered. "You will. Just wait 15 minutes. He blinked, unsure what else to do, then stepped away. Gloria adjusted the cuff of her coat. Her fingers were thick from age, but still steady. She didn't fidget. She simply looked out the window as if waiting for something she'd seen before. "I didn't expect this," she said. "What did you expect?" Elena asked. "To walk out of here. Same as I came. Not today." Gloria's lips curled in something like a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I thought that letter might be burned by now," she murmured. "Or lost. Or unread." Elena's voice softened. "Why didn't you ever open it?" "I didn't need to." She replied, "I was there. I already knew how it ended." Elena placed the envelope back in Gloria's hands. "He wrote it so someone else would understand. I think I was supposed to find it." Gloria held the letter for a moment, then slid it carefully back into her bag, as if returning something to a resting place. The noise of the airport faded. The usual clatter of wheels and footsteps carried on, unaware of the moment unraveling beside them. Elena checked her watch. 11 minutes had passed. She could already hear them, the deep, deliberate roar of military engines. Not frantic, not rushed, purposeful. "They're coming," she said quietly. Gloria tilted her head, listening. She didn't ask who. She already knew. 15 minutes passed like a held breath. Then came the low, thunderous sound, steady, mechanical, unmistakable. The floor trembled faintly beneath their feet. Outside the terminal's wide windows, heads turned. Travelers leaned toward the glass. A child gasped. Someone murmured. Military 5 matte black Humvees rounded the curve of the arrival deck, each bearing a crisp American flag and the crest of Special Forces on the hood. They didn't slow for show. They moved with precision, tight, disciplined, urgent. The lead vehicle stopped parallel to the terminal doors. Before the engine even cut, the side doors swung open. 12 soldiers emerged, full dress, boots silent but unified, rifles slung tight, helmets secured. Their posture made the space around them quiet. At their center, a tall officer in olive fatigues stepped forward. No sunglasses, no radio. Just a single folder tucked under his arm and a mission written in his gait. He entered the terminal without hesitation. Passengers froze. Security personnel instinctively stepped aside. The air thickened. Elena stood next to Gloria as the officer approached. She didn't move. Neither did Gloria. The officer stopped exactly 3 paces in front of them. His boots lined perfectly with the tile seam. He looked directly at Gloria and then raised his right hand in a crisp salute. "Ma'am," he said, "Gloria Rowe. On behalf of the National Guard of the United States, I've been ordered to escort you. Your presence has been formally requested at Andrews Air Force Base." His voice was steady, but his throat moved once tight with emotion as he continued. "We come with recognition, not orders." Gloria looked up at him. Her eyes were steady. "And what exactly are you recognizing?" "Son." The officer blinked once, then answered without flinching. "The woman who pulled Brigadier Graves from hell before anyone knew his name." Behind him, the soldiers stood at attention. Travelers watched silently from behind the stanchions. One woman in business attire lowered her coffee without realizing it had tipped. Elena leaned in and whispered, "He saved me, ma'am. Because you saved him. You were the first link in all of this." Gloria inhaled softly through her nose. Her hand rested gently on the worn leather duffel at her side. Then she stood. She didn't ask what would happen next. She didn't ask why. She just looked at the officer and said, "Lead the way." They moved as a unit. The soldiers didn't crowd her. They flanked her 2 on each side, one behind, forming a silent corridor of honor. Their boots echoed in exact rhythm as they exited the terminal. No one clapped. No one shouted. But the quiet had weight. Travelers turned slowly, unsure if they were witnessing something private or sacred. Someone lifted a phone to film, but before they could press record, a TSA supervisor gently touched the person's wrist and shook their head. "Not this," he said. "Not today." Outside, the cold spring air swept in as the terminal doors parted. The Humvees sat idle. Their engines purred like beasts at rest. One vehicle in the center had its rear hatch open. Inside, wrapped in navy blue cloth, lay a small wooden case. A triangular flag was folded beneath it. Carved on the surface was the insignia of Graves' original unit. Below it, etched into the wood in silver letters, were 6 words, "You carried me. I carried them." Gloria paused at the edge of the vehicle. The officer nodded once, then stepped aside to give her room. Elena moved up beside her, her hand lightly on Gloria's back. "He wanted you to have this," she said. The officer added quietly, "He left it with us 12 years ago. Said if she ever comes back into the light, this is hers." Gloria didn't speak. She stepped forward, placed her hand on the case, and closed her eyes. The cloth beneath her fingers was worn, the wood cool, but it vibrated with something that no one else could feel. A current of memory, pain, duty. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she turned to Elena. "Did you ever ask why he walked into that mission in Wardak?" she said. Elena nodded slowly. "I've asked myself that every year." "He knew he wouldn't return," Gloria said. "But he believed in finishing what others couldn't." Elena's eyes glassed. Maybe he did," she replied. The soldiers stood silent around them, unmoving. Gloria looked at the folded flag once more. "Then I guess it's time I finish what I didn't." The officer straightened. "Ma'am," she looked at him, resolute. "Take me to Andrews. I'm not done yet." He saluted her again. This time, not as a protocol, as a gesture of deep respect, Elena helped Gloria into the Humvee. The door closed behind her with a gentle click, not a slam. The convoy rolled out slowly. No sirens, no escort, just 5 dark vehicles pulling away into the gray daylight, carrying a story that no one else in the terminal could explain, but none of them would forget. Inside the airport, someone finally whispered, "Who was that?" No one answered, but a child by the window said softly, "She looked like someone important." And for once, everyone agreed. Andrews Air Force Base didn't feel like ceremony that day. No brass band, no red carpet, no speeches or streaming cameras. Just the quiet crunch of boots on concrete as the convoy pulled into a side hangar bay near the Eastern Admin Building. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the airfield. The wind moved like breath held in reverence. Gloria stepped down from the Humvee without help. Elena followed behind her, not flanking, just present. They were met by two officers in clean uniforms, both silent, both nodding once in greeting. One of them opened a steel door that led to a low, gray hallway. No one else spoke as they walked. The room they entered was small, simple. A wooden table sat at the center. No flags, no digital screens, just a desk lamp already lit, casting a soft cone of light over a box placed precisely in the middle. It was the same box Gloria had seen earlier in the Humvee, but now it sat still, waiting. The officer who had led them in stepped back and said, "Take all the time you need." Then he left, closing the door with a muted latch. Gloria approached the table slowly. Her boots made almost no sound on the tile floor. Her breath, calm, measured. She reached forward and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a piece of folded blue velvet, was a small silver badge. The kind issued decades ago to combat medics assigned to special operations, no longer in circulation. The edges had dulled, but the engraving remained. Beneath it lay a single sheet of yellowed paper, folded twice. Gloria picked it up with both hands. Her fingers hesitated before unfolding it. Then, carefully, she opened it all the way. It was his handwriting again. Graves. The ink had bled slightly from time, but the words were clear. I carried them through fire, but only because she carried me first. If anyone ever asked where I learned to lead without fear, it was from a woman who had no rank on her collar, only courage in her spine. If this ever finds her, tell her she finished what I never could. At the bottom, he'd written, if someone asks who started this chain, give them her name. Gloria read it twice, then folded the letter back with gentle, practiced movements. She set it beside the badge, but didn't close the box yet. Elena stood quietly near the wall, eyes lowered in respect. After a moment, Gloria placed one hand over the silver badge and let it rest there. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. Her voice, when it came, was steady. No one needs to know my name, she said. They just need to keep going. Elena nodded, barely whispering. They will. For the next few minutes, they didn't move. The room held them both in stillness. Eventually, Gloria stepped back from the table. She closed the lid, not abruptly, just firmly enough that it felt complete. Outside the room, the hall remained empty. No medals were pinned. No photographs were taken. But word traveled. That evening, Elena sat across from her in the officer's mess and asked softly, "Would you stay just for a few days?" Gloria tilted her head. "Why, we're running a new batch of medics through combat prep," Elena said. "They've read every manual, but they haven't heard from someone who used scissors and hands instead of rifles." Gloria smiled faintly. "Field medicine's not polite. It's not supposed to be." After a long pause, Gloria said, 6 days. Elena laughed. "We'll take them." And they did. For 6 straight days. Gloria ran short sessions in the emergency sim bay. No slideshows, no ranks. Just her, a dummy torso, and 3 decades of field improvisation. She showed them how to stop bleeding with a cargo strap, how to seal a lung with plastic wrap and grit, how to breathe steady while someone else screams. She didn't ask for a classroom. She taught under fluorescent lights and overtop scattered gear. By the 3rd day, even the cockiest trainees listened without interruption. She never once told them who she was, only what they needed to know. On the 7th morning, she packed her things and left the badge in her pocket, not the box. The letter she kept folded inside a photo album, tucked between 2 pictures no one else had seen. A staff sergeant offered to drive her to the airport, but she declined. "I've walked off bases before," she said. I can do it one more time. Back in Florida, she returned to her small apartment, her garden, and her silence. No reporters came. No newspaper ran a story. But something had shifted. Elena kept her promise. The next training cycle came that fall. 32 new recruits filed into the same room where Gloria had stood. Elena waited until the lights dimmed. Then she told them a story. She didn't give names. She didn't need to. She just said, there was a woman once who nobody clapped for. Nobody decorated. But she pulled a man from under stone and smoke. And because of that, he lived long enough to save me. They listened. None of them spoke. Outside, the first light of spring slipped through the windows. One of the trainees, young, black, maybe 18, rested his hand over the new field med pack slung across his shoulder. He didn't say anything, but he turned toward the window, toward the light,